So as product marketers, messaging is the job. It's what I spend most of my time thinking about. How do you take a product, what it actually does, and translate into something that lands with the right person at the right moment in a way that moves them? And honestly, the process is still pretty broken. Messaging lives in decks, in Notion, in people's heads. It doesn't connect to how the team actually sells. Today I'm talking to Zach, co-founder of Octave, about whether that's finally a solvable problem. Octave's thesis is that messaging and context need to live in a system, not just a document. If you get that right, it changes everything downstream in your GTM motion.
I think there's kind of two fundamental problems. I think one is messaging and positioning that's been created for teams. It is thoughtful, it's well researched, it's grounded, it's all these things. Hey, we know when we're talking to financial services companies that are large and public, and we're talking to the CTO about this use case, like that linkage can tell us a lot of things.
All right. So as product marketers, messaging is the job. It's what I spend most of my time thinking about. How do you take a product, what it actually does, and translate into something that lands with the right person at the right moment in a way that moves them? And honestly, the process is still pretty broken. Messaging lives in decks, in Notion, in people's heads. It doesn't connect to how the team actually sells. And the moment your product changes, which right now is constantly, all thanks to AI, you are scrambling to update everything manually. Today I'm talking to Zach, co-founder of Octave, about whether that's finally a solvable problem. Octave's thesis is that messaging and context need to live in a system, not just a document. And that if you get that right, it changes everything downstream in your GTM motion. Welcome to One GTM Labs podcast, Zach.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat today. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of questions that I will be asking as a product marketer, but there are a lot of questions that actually jump straight to the GTM motion and the GTM engineering side of Quest. So I'm really excited to actually get started.
Great.
And focus a bit more about what's actually broken. So from where you sit, what's the core failure in how GTM teams manage messaging today? And why has it been so hard to fix?
I think there's kind of two fundamental problems. I think one is, when we think about messaging and positioning that's been created for teams, it is thoughtful, it's well researched, it's grounded, it's all these things, but I'd say one of the most common issues is it's at an elevation that's too high to be consumable and readily usable by the field team, right? It's a little too broad, it's a little too overfit, where then, it's at a 30,000 foot level and the sales rep is they are at ground floor and they're like, I need something to talk to this person at this company that is going to make them more aware, more urgent, more interested, more compelled, whatever. So I'd say that's one thing that's been just a challenge, because it's hard to do that for everyone on the ground. I think the second fundamental problem, and I wouldn't say it's just a problem, it's a challenge, is that a lot of this stuff, it is qualitative in nature. It is not, messaging and positioning. There is psychology in this. There are other things that aren't purely like metrics-based, quantifiable. So it's been very difficult in the past to tie a feedback loop between these things. Like, what's actually working? How do we improve that? And how do we do that at a rate that is useful to the field? And it's not, again, I'm not saying every company does this, but just, hey, it's not, we meet at kickoff every year and we got the new story. We'll see you next year. Let us know how it goes. That's obviously, I'm saying that in jest, but I think that's a big challenge too, is that the feedback loop takes too long to iterate and refine and make this stuff more precise and higher fidelity.
Absolutely. So I think is it more of a people problem, a process problem, or genuinely a tooling gap?
I think like most things, all the above, probably. I think it would be hard to isolate. I would say I think what has changed, and obviously, self-serving belief, why we're building Octave, but I think AI has unlocked the ability for technology to tackle this problem in a new way. Absolutely, because of that, there's evolution to be done in people and teams and processes, but I would say fundamentally, like, the reason we exist is because now there are things you can do with the technology and AI that just simply wasn't possible just a few years ago.
Absolutely. So I have been guilty of being a product marketer who has constantly been delivering a lot of content, but then there was a time there was no feedback loop attached to it. There was no insights, the real world insights that the sales team is struggling with, the messaging that we are putting out. It's not aligning with the product. So I do agree. I completely understand that's bigger problem. That's a bigger RevOps problem as well, because we don't know how what we have worked is actually connecting to the work actually the salespeople and client facing people are actually the struggles they are facing right now. So that's something that I believe is a people, process, and a tooling problem, all orchestrated into one. So moving on to a question that's more aligned towards the context as the missing layer, because you talk a lot about context, that GTM tools know nothing about your product, your ICP, your actual value propositions. What does it mean to have context in a system, and what actually becomes possible when you do have context into the system?
Yeah. So I think things are very easy if you have a simple product and you have one buyer and it's one value prop and you're in a market that's well understood by buyers, right? That is, not to say easy, but it's definitely easier. When we think about the context layer, is you think about products that have large markets, that have lots of personas, that have lots of different market segments, ways you can slice it into verticals or industries or however you want. You have lots of different use cases. Those become all of these different factors that might change how you message and position, right? So the context layer is one kind of capturing what are all these things, like all the things we talk about, personas and use cases and competitors and proof points and case studies, business outcomes, right? There's all this stuff.
Everything.
But fundamentally where you're able to solve things in a new way and give the AI more precision is kind of the context lies within the relationships between these things, right? It is kind of hey, we know when we're talking to financial services companies that are large and public, and we're talking to the CTO about this use case, like that linkage can tell us a lot of things. Oh, we should be referencing this customer, and like the proof point's probably this, and the pain you're right. It's that web of relations that really gives the context the richness, and that's what of course, we use all the frontier models underneath us, right? We're not building an LLM. We use GPT and Gemini and Claude. And what we can give them is this understanding of these relationships that are really specific to your business and how you view the market. And that's what gives you the edge, right? Everyone's got Claude. You need to give Claude your perspective and your opinions and your strategy so you can take it further.
Absolutely. And I think it all comes down to the context that you feed in. It could be generic, but then you should be expecting some generic responses as well.
Right.
But if it's fully knowledge, if it's rich in knowledge about your product, about your ICPs, everything that you can feed it into it, I think that solves a bigger problem for not even just product marketers, but for GTM engineering folks and people who are actually in marketing, so that they know what the work they're doing has the outcomes. So I truly believe this solves a bigger problem that we are actually talking about. So the other question that I have for you is, as a product marketer, my job is to actually build the messaging foundation, right? The positioning, the personas, and the entire narrative. But there's always a gap between what I create and how actually it gets used by sales, which I just spoke about, right?
Yeah.
So where does Octave live in that gap, and how far it can go in turning a product marketer's work into something the whole GTM team can actually execute from?
Yeah.
Also would love for you to talk a little bit about Octave and how it's coming into the picture when I talk about product marketers and GTM engineering
Yeah,
folks.
I'm excited. This is like the
It's
most.
two questions in one, so
This
just
is a fun part. So yeah, keep me honest
yeah.
as I start to try and unpack that. But I think what gets us really excited, and what we see with our customers and teams, is Octave can create this true connective tissue between the PMMs and the field execution. I think part of like what we were talking about, like what's broken is, things would get created at a higher altitude because these teams, generally speaking, like PMMs are almost always an under-resourced, understaffed teams.
Right.
They're underwater. Everyone's asking them, hey, I need, for my industry, for my account, for my vertical, for my
Right.
I need all this stuff, and hey, I got a new feature launch, and you're just like, oh my god. So it's like, all right, the amount of stuff that can even be done is
Yeah.
very small, and then it's often created in form factors like we talked about, right? It goes into Google Docs and Notion and places that are like, okay, it's now my job as the person to go be my own decipherer of like, okay, I
Yeah.
need to absorb that. I need to, acknowledge it. I need to process it and then regurgitate it into
Oh my
the
God.
format for me. I think Octave in its purest form, when I see it working really well, is like we are bridging some of that connective tissue where it allows you to do this strategic level refinement of how do we position ourselves, what are our anchors, what are the key things we need to land in all our stories. Then it can give you some of the gears turning to like, okay, now we actually have 50 ICPs, right? Because we have 10 segments we target and there's 5 personas in each, and each one of those needs a unique story. Octave can help kind of atomize that and then plug that directly into the tools the sellers are using. So that could be as simple as, okay, it's using our MCP and Claude, right? And now when they chat with Claude to get anything they want, boom, all the stuff you created is right there and accessible. They're not needing to go into a project, into Notion, copy this doc. Okay, Claude, right? It's native in there. And then it can also be, obviously, teams build fully automated agents and automations too, where maybe these things there's workflows in Clay or N8N or other systems like that where they want to go, hey, I want to use that rich context of our ICP to do lead scoring and qualification. And now that's like, you've now created like a direct link between the work of the PMM team and the downstream like ops team. And like
Exactly.
that's the cool part when I see it working its best is we're building that the bridge with
The
technology.
bridge. Yeah. Yeah, I can totally vouch for whatever you said because we have been using personally Octave for so many of our clients, and we can see the difference. When I used to do everything manually, there was a disconnect. There was this gap that I couldn't manually solve it, and I always wanted something that can help me actually build something of the things that I'm working on, right? So as a product marketer, I know for a fact that tools like Octave are actually helping us bridge the strategic pressure or the burden that we already had to actually make sense of the things that we are working on. So, totally 100% agree on what you just mentioned about how Octave actually bridges the gap between a product marketer and the teams that are actually doing the work in front of the clients, how they're talking about the product and the narrative. So, I completely agree on
Cool.
that. But I just want to understand from your perspective, like what's the maximum potential here? If a team is actually using Octave really well, what does that unlock that isn't possible today? Maybe manually, or maybe teams are still struggling to do that.
Yeah, I think the what gets enabled, yeah, when things are working as intended, right? And we are getting all our customers there, but it is a
Right.
transformation. Is part of what we talked about before of that feedback cycle of how quickly can we refine and iterate, right? Because
Right.
Octave can go listen to the calls. It can look at your deals as well. It can help you. The coolest thing about, I guess why I'm in love with Octave. Of course I am, but it gives you the important thing, and I'm sure you'd agree with messaging and positioning, it's a hypothesis at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
It's never ground truth. It's never the like it's an equation you solve and like don't touch it. We figured it out, right? Like it's always this kind of hypothesis and experiment. And so when Octave is working best, it gives you this kind of point you can measure from, right? And then we're listening to calls, we're looking at your CRM, and we're trying to figure out, hey, when a sales rep diverges from the kind of plan of record messaging, are they doing something wrong? Like they're not adhering, and we see deals slipping, pipeline, opportunity size shrinking when they're talking that way, or are we seeing things that are going, hey, look at that, like they've found new alpha, we have a LeBron on the team who's found something new to say that we didn't think about, and now we need to pull that in and fast follow, right? And in both of those cases, that feedback loop, that iteration time, that is like transformative, right? Like, and I think for some teams it is a like, okay, we need to digest the prospect of like, we're going to update our messaging constantly, which like, it feels like, oh my God, everyone knows like that's what it should be. Like we should be just plugged into the market and reacting daily, but that can be okay, we need to think about all right, every Monday are we going to now review some of our core personas and see if they need to be updated? Like, oh my God, 2 years ago that would have been, no, we revisit personas like once or twice a year, and so I think those are some of the like transformations that are happening in teams, and then when they kind of cross into that new world, I think it unlocks a lot of new possibilities of just the speed to get to these super high fidelity definitions that then become so much more tactical. They are not just concepts, they become tools.
That's super interesting, and I just want to understand like what's one thing maybe on the roadmap that's coming soon that you're pretty excited. It's okay if you don't want to share that, but one insight that gave you a lot of clarity when people are actually using Octave, and they give you what's something that's coming up in Octave that people should be really excited about.
So I haven't talked about this anywhere yet, but kind of related to what we were just talking about a second ago, and we're having a little fun with it. We're going to create something called the RAD score, which is basically, we think there's kind of 3 dimensions to really understanding if your messaging and positioning is working well, and they're basically resonance, adherence, and differentiation, right? We're trying to figure out like, is what you're saying landing? Are people responding to it in a positive way? Is the team using that message, right? Like, are we, hey, when we're supposed to be talking to fintech companies and the DevOps team, are we talking about things this way? And then differentiation, right? Trying to measure, we can only break out in markets if we have a unique edge, if we sound different than our competitors, right? And I'm not going to spill all the beans on how we're doing that and what we're doing, but Octave we think that kind of RAD score, like giving something teams can, again, and it's not going to be perfect science, but we think giving something to measure against is going to be extremely powerful in being able to drive towards, hey, what do we want to be? We want to sound like we know what the hell we're talking about, everyone's using the message, and we are different than our competitors, and so that's something I'm excited to in the coming weeks and months. You'll see more of.
Oh, I'm super excited. Yeah. I'm sure my teams are also excited after I share them this clip. Because
now they're going to make us get it out quicker, but that's
Absolutely.
Good. We want the pressure.
Right. So moving on to our next question. So for a product marketer or a GTM leader who wants to get this right and wants to make the best use of Octave, what's something they need to figured out before they actually start getting their hands dirty on Octave? What's something that will help them?
I would say what I tell every prospect we're talking to, and it sounds like maybe pedantic, and I don't mean to be like a jerk about it, but like I just want everybody to know, like, I don't sell Octave is going to tell you your perfect ICP, right? Like that's not what I'm selling. I'm selling infrastructure and tooling to do all the things we're talking about. And so in terms of prerequisites, we could talk about tools and things you need, but I think the most important thing, not to make it too, spiritual in nature, you need to come with like some hypothesis that you want to start with. You don't need, for example, like what Octave is really good at helping teams with is like, hey, you have 4 segments, again, let's say, healthcare, manufacturing, financial services. Okay. What Octave would tell you is like, wow, those are super broad. Like, are you really just going after healthcare? Like, is pharma the same as biotech? Is the same as hospitals? Is the same as health insurers? So like, what we can help you do is like, all right, we clearly need to like pull that stuff apart, make it more precise. But what you need to come is like with some of that hypothesis of like, where do we think we are? What do we want to test? We will help you now take it to the next level and then get that feedback loop started. So that's the, we are here to help bring rigor and tooling to this whole process, speed it up, make it go faster, give you more precision, drive pipeline, like that's what the ultimate, when Octave is working, is helping companies with.
All right, yeah, thank you so much for making that clear, because I for a fact know how important it is to actually figure that out, like your message market fit, your product market fit,
Right.
before you actually get into testing it out in the market or running it in your GTM motions, running campaigns around it, because messaging can go way far if it's not connected
Right.
to the product narrative, right?
Right.
So I'm really sure people who would want to get to that stage, there has to be a lot of processes, there has to be a lot of discussions and brainstorming and actual testing with your real customers, what's working and what's not working, before they actually test it out. But I'm sure once you have logged it in, a tool like Octave can actually put your entire system into motion and can actually scale it to lens where you get a lot more clarity and get a lot of strategic hand holding in terms of where you can take this messaging forward in your GTM motion as well.
Right, exactly. It's not, Octave is, at the end of the day, we are very purposely, it's not a black box. You can see everything. You can see what it's doing. It's all audible. And I think that's really important. Yeah, because this stuff, to your point, like, this is the confluence of the company's ethos, the product strategy and roadmap, what's happening in the field, our existing customers, our prospect. There's so much kind of fusion that needs to happen. It's such a critical process in the business. So anybody that's telling you, we can give you the answer to all that, it's a black box, just pay me, like, good luck. If that was true, they're going to be the most valuable company on earth.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we are helping put rigor and tooling around that, so we can take the hypotheses, validate it or disprove it, and then just start going faster and faster.
Absolutely. And I think this makes messaging even more important piece of the puzzle that actually solves a lot of your things in your GTM motion as well, right? Because without a strong messaging, strong knowledge base of your own product, I think it's just like giving a really bad prompt to maybe ChatGPT or Claude and expecting it to turn it into something gold, right? And that doesn't happen. You have to actually make it a system, talk about it in your product, and be more context driven as possible to actually make the best use of it.
I am very bullish on, I think the product marketing function is only going to rise in importance and like elevate in its like strategic importance within organizations. And like part of what I think is happening is code is becoming free. Like product is becoming so easy. Like your product and technology moats as a business, those walls are coming down way faster than everybody expected. And like, what are you going to do out in market when last year you had 10 competitors, next year you're going to have 1,000. They're all going to be able to send agents into your product. They will copy every button. They'll read every tooltip. There will be no feature differentiation. Like your differentiation is going to come from your messaging and positioning. So I think future is bright for product marketing. I think that is going to become not that it isn't a critical function in an organization, but I think companies are about to turn over a new leaf and recognize like, this isn't just something we need to do. This is actually an offensive weapon in our go-to-market.
Absolutely, and even I am really bullish on this because one for a fact I am in product
Yeah.
marketing. I can see the potential of tools like Octave, right? I know for a fact how important and how big of a problem it's solving for us. And we know it was not possible few years back. It was not possible to actually make sense of the documents, messaging and positioning documents that we have created that are sitting for over a year without getting edited, without getting any feedback in loop,
Right.
right? So I know for a fact that you've solved a really big problem, and I know people more in product marketing, more in GTM, they're just gonna be using Octave and these tools just to fix. We don't want to call it a small problem, it's a huge problem, right?
Yeah.
So just bridging this problem and fixing it with a solution like this, I think it's just gonna make product positioning and maybe GTM motions really
Yeah.
more successful and more context driven
Yeah.
and align. The biggest problem I think we have in GTM teams right now is that internal alignment is not at all possible. Everybody's talking like some 100 different languages about the one product that they're selling, and it doesn't make sense. So ultimately, it all comes down to how we are all talking about one product in one
Yeah.
straightforward messaging and how it
Yeah.
gets delivered. So
Well, and
really excited about this.
imagine how complex this is for companies. I mean, how complex it is for one product. Imagine you're a
Exactly.
multi-product company. You're a large.
You're
I mean,
gone.
I used to work at VMware. I mean, oh my God, I'm like not exaggerating. We probably had 5,000 products. You know, like the complexity of that, to manage that, to
Right.
update that, to get the whole org as a hive mind to be on the same page. Like, it is a massive problem.
Absolutely. And it gives me chills because I have been in the same position. I have worked with some 7, 8 product marketers. I've worked with a platform suite that had some 10, 15 products in it. And I know how difficult and how time taking that entire process was just to set the context. And then when you get feedback, you're gone. Like it's
Yep.
3 to 6 months into just editing mode and just working on
Right.
feedback and getting the teams to actually make sense of what we are building. So that's true. That still gives me a lot of chills and a lot of nightmares as well.
Yeah.
But I'm glad AI
But
and tools like these are really supporting what we can actually fix in the coming times.
yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
it's a fun time. I think the ability of AI to you know the human judgment, taste, creativity. Everyone talks about it, but it's so critical in
It
this
is.
function in particular. And now there's ways we can inject that into the tools, into the agents, into the systems in a way that like it would be magical thinking years ago, and that's becoming possible, which is really cool.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this. And somehow this conversation hits a close to home for me because messaging has always felt like one of those things that's everyone's responsibility but no one's system. So with Zach building Octave is a real answer to that, I feel, right? So
I hope so. Those are very kind words. We are we are really serious about this problem. We're really
yeah,
excited about it. It's why we've been building Octave. You know, we think there's something that's really required in everyone's stack
absolutely.
here. You know,
It
if
is.
if you're building on a shaky foundation of we're not sure who we're for, why they care about us, the problems we solve, like, oh my God, like how do you build any processes on top of that as a go-to-market
Exactly.
org? So I truly believe this is foundational to the stack and the people and processes and tooling, everything you build on top. So that's
Absolutely.
what we're marching towards.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zach, for your time today. And people, if you're in product marketing, sales, GTM, or anywhere in the org, and you have felt the gap between messaging you create and how it actually reaches buyers, you need to go check out Octave at octavehq.com. And if this episode resonated, share it with someone who's thinking about the same problems. And we'll see you in the next time.
Thank you so much. That was really fun. And yeah,
Yeah.
ping me on LinkedIn. Anybody, if you have questions, I'm here. Love to chat about this stuff all the time.
Absolutely. And I'll be linking Zach's LinkedIn profile and everything so that you can reach out to him directly from the description below. Thank you.